Goody Two Shoes, and today I'm here to talk to you about personal protective equipment, or PPE. This is a crucial part of safety in the workplace, especially in places with as many potential hazards as oil and gas refineries. But the potential for hazards doesn't have to mean an unsafe work environment. In this video, we'll examine what you can and should wear to protect yourself on a day-to-day basis. Hey, Sketchy!
Hello.
Are you here to appreciate the amazing feats of engineering that went into designing this magnificent refinery?
Yeah, totally. I wasn't gonna go in there and turn a bunch of valves without an MOC, and I would never disregard lockout tagout procedure either.
Great! Well, if you're going to go into the refinery, we should first make sure that you have all of the proper PPE. So, first of all, where's your hard hat?
My hard hat?
Yes, your hard hat.
Most notably, hard hats protect your head from falling objects. This is especially important in active construction areas where equipment is being lifted, or there are workers on man lifts using tools. With any kind of overhead work, it is considered best practice to secure loose tools by strapping them to your person, to build scaffolding with nets, and to never stand or walk underneath a precariously suspended object.
You know, I'm really not a fan of hat hair.
But that's not the only danger. Things can fall on more than just your head. The same precautions are taken for your boots.
My boots?
Yes, your steel-toed boots!
Objects could fall or roll onto your foot, which is why we wear protective footwear that is specifically reinforced to defend from these dangers. The steel in the toe makes the boots rather heavy to walk in, but it's worth it to know that you won't stub your toe on a low-lying pipe. Even the soles are fortified to protect against anything sharp that might try to pierce the bottom of the boot should you accidentally step on it. They can also help prevent injuries from slips, trips, and falls, and even more rare lacerations or burns.
You know, my legs might not even be strong enough to lift my feet in these, and you can't even see my socks.
It's really not that bad. And anyway, it's a small inconvenience to ultimately ensure your personal safety.
Next, you're gonna tell me I've gotta wear something to limit the dexterity of my sticky hands.
Well...
The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that 110,000 workers have suffered lost time hand injuries. 70% of those workers were not wearing proper work gloves. OSHA requires hand protection anytime your hands are at risk for experiencing extreme temperatures, lacerations, or electricity. Hand protection is also vital in the refinery because pinch points are common. A pinch point is when a moving part of equipment contacts or rubs against another surface and can cause laceration or even amputation. It is important to make sure you are using the correct gloves for the situation you are exposed to. Leather gloves protect against sparks, moderate temperatures, and rough surfaces. Electrically insulated gloves safeguard against electrical hazards like live wires.
Great, I can't even have my hands free. At this rate, you're gonna hear me complain all afternoon.
Well, lucky for me, I'll be wearing my hearing protection. And you should too.
Noise is an unavoidable occurrence on the job. According to the Center for Disease Control, an estimated 22 million workers are exposed to damaging noise levels each year. Noise levels are measured in decibels, dB, a relative logarithmic scale used to compare the intensity of two sounds. For comparison purposes, average speech is roughly 60 decibels. Average factory ambience is around 90 decibels, including common machinery such as compressors and pumps. A passing truck registers at 100 decibels, and riveting or other heavy operating equipment is typically around 120 decibels. For noise levels over 90 decibels, OSHA requires a hearing conservation program. It is essential to know the noise levels you are exposed to because there are permissible noise exposure limits that, when exceeded, hearing damage is likely to occur. For example, you can only be exposed to sound at 120 decibels for 15 minutes and sound at 100 decibels for 2 hours. Hearing protection is vital for individuals exposed to these conditions for an 8-hour shift to protect their hearing. A good rule of thumb when trying to estimate noise levels is that if you need to raise your voice to speak to someone 3 feet away, noise levels might be over 85 decibels, and you should be wearing hearing protection. Common types of hearing protection include earplugs and earmuffs. Earmuffs fit over the head and cover the entire ear. Earplugs are typically a piece of rubber or other noise-dampening material placed in the ear that conforms to the shape of the ear canal.
This is ridiculous. There's so many pieces of PPE, and it seems like the list just goes on and on. Is there an end in sight for your lecturing?
No, not quite. And if you want to keep seeing as well as you do, then you'll take my next bit of information very seriously.
OSHA requires that face and eye protection are provided whenever necessary to protect individuals against chemical, environmental, radiological, or mechanical hazards. Safety glasses are required when there is a potential for projectiles to affect the eyes. In the rare instance that chemicals may breach their primary containment vessels, safety glasses will lessen the severity of potential eye damage. For more dangerous areas of the refinery, face shields are required to protect the entire face. This is the case for the alkylation unit, whose chemicals are notoriously toxic and corrosive. And it is important to note that a face shield is not an appropriate substitute for safety glasses.
Sheesh. Well, at least I get to wear my comfy clothes. You know, I need my full mobility for climbing up ladders.
Yeah, I mean, comfortability is subjective, but I think you might actually like some Nomex coveralls. It's fire-resistant material that you can pull on right over your regular clothes. And then you wouldn't have to wear something like what I'm wearing now.
Those are fire resistant?
Yep, and they're super important.
In the rare event of a fire or explosion, fire-resistant clothing could be life-saving. These garments are specifically designed to reduce the potential for and severity of burns. That means instead of being completely overcome by a conflagration, you could potentially only sustain minor burn injuries and have time to be rescued by emergency responders. Whether you have Nomex coveralls over your regular clothes or wear other FRC, this is the core of your PPE attire.
Well, that's the best news we've had all afternoon. Is that all the required PPE then?
Almost. The last thing you need to clip onto your garb is an H2S monitor, or preferably a 4-gas monitor if it's in the safety budget.
4 gases? 4 what?
One of a refinery employee's best defenses is their 4-gas monitor, given its name because it continuously measures the concentrations of 4 types of gases in a person's immediate surrounding area: hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, oxygen, and combustibles. Specifically, the 4-gas monitor must be positioned on your person in the space that forms a 9-inch downward circle from the mouth and nose. This placement is important because it ensures that it is measuring gases in your breathing zone. When going out into the refinery, employees run the risk of being exposed to hazardous gases should they escape from their primary containment. This can be especially dangerous when the fluid is colorless and heavier than air, as is the case with hydrogen sulfide. It could potentially collect in large amounts at a person's breathing level, and acute exposure to this gas can cause anything from nausea, headaches, and delirium at lower concentrations to rapid unconsciousness and death at high concentrations. For these reasons, hydrogen sulfide is one of the 4 gases monitored by this device, and it will sound a low-level alarm at 10 ppm of exposure. Another gas on the radar is carbon monoxide, which is sometimes referred to as the silent killer because it is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and non-irritating. Silent, but potentially deadly, a low-level alarm will sound for this gas at 35 ppm of exposure. Perhaps surprisingly, the 4-gas monitor also measures the amount of oxygen in the air. Instead of sounding an alarm when the gas concentration gets too high, like with the other previously mentioned hazards, this alarm will sound if the concentration of oxygen gets too low, specifically below 19.5%. We may not always think about it, but the oxygen in the air is normally around 20.9%, and if too much of this volume is replaced by other gases, like maybe an inert, like nitrogen, that's often used to purge equipment for maintenance, then humans cannot perform the cellular respiration required for life. The last of the 4 measurements is LEL%, which is the lower explosive limit for a combustible gas, defined by the concentration at which hydrocarbons are rich enough in the air to burn. A low-level alarm will sound when 10% of the LEL is detected for any of these combustible gases.
Okay, now that we have all of our PPE for our heads, toes, hands, ears, eyes, bodies, and breaths, we can go into the refinery knowing we are doing our part to follow personal safety rules.
All right, let's go!